need to recognize that the world is under a viral affront right now like it has never experienced before, and it's getting worse. And we need inexpensive solutions. And Ozone is an inexpensive, very effective, non-toxic solution.
Ozone has no side effects. It won't hurt anybody. And one of the major costs of medical treatment in the United States is the fact that people get sick from the stuff we use. In 1994, in the United States alone, over 3,000 people died from ibuprofen-like drugs. They died. Now, I don't know how many were injured and developed ulcers and then ended up in the hospital from the drug. Probably an enormous amount of that. But you have to compute that into the cost of medical care. Is all the side effects and the what we call iatrogenic diseases induced by the medications.
Drugs do help countless people, but there are also the side effects. In 1998, the Journal of the American Medical Association reported serious adverse drug reactions with 2.2 million patients, resulting in 106,000 deaths, making pharmaceuticals themselves the fifth leading cause of death in the United States.
You know what it's going to take is the fact that conventional medical modalities are bankrupting the country. That's what it's going to take. Because I can go in with ozone and I can treat at a fraction of a cost the same diseases these guys are treating with medications.
They can't make any money on it. The problem with America is it's an economic-based country. How would the pharmaceutical companies make money out of ozone?
In 2001, in the United States alone, $154 billion were spent on prescription drugs. Profit margins are some of the highest of any industry. The resulting influence on the medical world is profound.
Through grants and through advertising, they basically control every medical institution there is, from the American Heart Association to the Journal of the American Medical Association to any medical journal to virtually any continuing education conference you're going to go to. If it's put on by a university in little tiny letters down there, you're going to find out that it was a huge grant was given by a pharmaceutical industry. No question about it.
In the FDA, drug companies have representatives on nearly all the committees. If there's something which may undersell the average drug company, of course they're not going to be very pleased if that gets developed. It might be very difficult for them to compete with that.
Nobody in the pharmaceutical industry can sell ozone. That's a main reason. When we can find a way to sell ozone, I'm sure that ozone is the most important drug in the world.
It's not a problem of money, it's not a problem of business, it's a problem of the health of a human being.
Eventually they will have to open their eyes and see the light and analyze this as a potential therapy. But until then, lots of people are going to die, you know?
Medical studies suggest a major breakthrough, yet American government officials and the media have condemned it as medical fraud. How has opinion become so divided over such a simple medical treatment? Ozone is well known as the protective layer surrounding the Earth, which absorbs the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. It is formed when electric or ultraviolet energy reacts with oxygen molecules typically made of two atoms, causing them to temporarily recombine into groups of three. The new molecule is called ozone. Unstable and quick to react with other substances, oxygen's traditional properties are suddenly more powerful.
Ozone acts as a sort of super oxygen in a way. It's sort of electrified oxygen. It carries negative ions on it, and it's a very potent oxidizing agent, sort of like bleach, you know, like Clorox, really. And that's why people are afraid of it. You know, they feel that it's going to bleach out all your vessels. And quite obviously, if you put too much in, it will.
By the early 1900s, a handful of European cities had beaten epidemics like typhoid fever by ozonating their drinking water. Today, more than 3,000 cities and towns around the world, including Moscow, Montreal, and Los Angeles, bubble ozone through their water supplies, oxidizing particulates, killing all bacteria and viruses, and leaving the water disinfected and safe to drink.
And 16% are so disabled that they need total care around the clock.
And ozone will help them?
I can count it up from 40 patients, but in 40 patients, nobody was dying, nobody is disabled, and only 2 are so disabled that they have basic movement only.
This 1997 study shows that the effects of some drugs are made more effective when combined with ozone.
We can take 50% of the amount of drugs we normally use, plus ozone, and then it works in the same way, but we don't have the side effects of drugs. For instance, loss of hair, vomiting, dizziness, and so on.
German doctors were the first to use ozone medically during World War I to sterilize battle wounds. But it wasn't until 1959 that Dr. Joachim Hansler developed the first popular ozone machine for medicine. Today, his daughter, Renata Wiban, a PhD biochemist, carries on his legacy.
We are the first company in the medical ozone field. We have about 10,000 medical doctors around Germany, and about 70% are working with our equipment. It's not a treatment for patients at their home. The therapy to give the right concentration, to administer it in the correct form is not so easy.
Dr. Wiban has also written the definitive clinical reference book on the subject, addressing the science behind the treatment and listing specific dosages for more than 22 areas of medicine. Ozone is applied in various ways. The main method is known as autohemotherapy, where small amounts of blood are exposed to ozone oxygen and then re-injected into the body. Other methods include rectal and vaginal insufflation, external bagging for burns, wounds, and ulcers, and more recently the use of an ozone sauna. A growing number of dentists now use ozone to treat cavities and to flush the mouth with ozonated water during surgery, lowering the risk of infection. Edge is found in only a handful of clinics. This one is in southern India. A dialysis-type method allows continuous treatment of the blood through a canister of hollow fibers, which allows maximum surface contact with the ozone oxygen. This method, more than any other, shows the dramatic change in blood color from dark to bright red.
I think I was in the world the first physician who treated AIDS patients with ozone. You cannot kill the virus, but you can help the patients. You know? And my first patients, they are living in a good situation. They are doing very, very well. They are working. The best success we have on eczema patients, then asthma, polyarthritis, and on special cases of cancer, lymph cancer, non-Hodgkin, we are successful too.
The relationship between oxygen and cancer cells was defined by two-time Nobel Prize winner Dr. Otto Warburg, who confirmed that the key precondition for the development of cancer cells is a lack of oxygen at the cellular level. In 1980, the peer-reviewed journal Science reported that ozone inhibits the growth of human cancer cells without damage to healthy cells. How is it possible that one medical therapy could have reported benefits in so many areas of medicine? Along with hydrogen peroxide, hyperbaric oxygen, and mineral oxide supplements, ozone belongs in a family called the oxygen therapies. The implications for these therapies are based on the relationship of oxygen to human health, fundamental for the transformation of energy that makes human life possible. It is instrumental in every process, from cell creation and respiration to movement and consciousness. Sufficient amounts provide energy for physical activity, stimulating growth and a healthy immune system. If this swimmer does not surface, within minutes he will die. Oxygen is essential for life, and ozone is energized oxygen. Red blood cells carry oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body. Ozone, applied in small, precise amounts, increases oxygen uptake and stimulates the release of oxygen throughout the body.
Ozone is a very good remedy, and it's less time-consuming for the doctors, for the nurses to use it, and it is cheap for the patients.
Russian doctors are also members of the International Ozone Association, which holds world congresses every 2 years, where the cutting edge of ozone research is presented. Hundreds of medical papers have now been published by the IOA, including this study of 300 herpes patients in Brazil, which found ozone reduced pain for almost 90% of them, and for 30%, an elimination of outbreaks for more than a year. And in April 2004, scientists from the University of Marburg announced a potentially major breakthrough. Rabbits with solid deadly tumors were then treated with ozone injected into the peritoneal cavity. The tumors were completely eliminated in 50% of the animals, but important human studies still need to be done. In Cuba, Fidel Castro personally mandated the National Ozone Research Center, which then conducted studies that led to approval by the Ministry of Health. Today, more than 100,000 Cubans have been treated for free. The government even runs an ozone clinic for foreigners.
It's not a paradox that many people want to go to Cuba to be treated. In every main hospital, in every place in Cuba, there is a ozone therapy service. The quality, the attention, the medical knowledge is very high in Cuba.
Well, we have introduced ozone therapy in 1986. We have begun using ozone in animals. We have performed a lot of preclinical tests in order to be sure that this therapy doesn't cause any side effects. After that, we have begun with clinical experimentation, with clinical protocols, in order to know what are specifically the therapeutical properties of ozone. And we have begun in the field of angiology. Then we have treated patients with diabetic foot with very good results. We increase the healing, and also we avoid or diminish amputations in those patients. And then we continued in the field of ophthalmology, and especially in retinitis pigmentosa, we have treated more than 5,000 patients with good results, increasing visual field in almost 70%.
In Cuba, we have worked and developed therapeutical procedures in angiology, cardiology, gastroenterology, dermatology,
ophthalmology, gynecology, internal medicine, intensive cares, orthopedics, hematology, neurology. You see, we will study every field of medicines, and we have obtained good results. In senile dementia, Alzheimer's disease, stroke. Also, we have treated Parkinson's disease. Always improving quality of life. Of course, I'm not talking about the cure of Parkinson. But that is important. Increase the quality of life is so important that patients, our patients, receive ozone therapy with open heart.
Yet just across the Gulf Stream, ozone therapy is mired in controversy. In the United States, researchers have largely ignored it, and government officials and the media. But in Russia, a state-run healthcare system has propelled ozone to the front ranks. Major animal and human studies conducted at government hospitals led to approval by the Ministry of Health many years ago.
Ozone has been practiced in Russia for more than 40 years already. The most important event nowadays is the establishment of All Russia Association of Ozone Therapy. In very many parts of Russia and what we now call the Commonwealth of Independent States, or the form of the Soviet Union, who bring medical ozone into their clinical practice.
Озонотерапией мы начали заниматься более 20 лет назад, и в настоящее время нами организована система обучения, подготовки врачей, специалистов, озонотерапевтов. После дипломного образования в России включает в себя преподавание озонотерапии.
I'm using ozone therapy from 1992. My special interest is pelvic inflammatory disease. As for results of our work, the most important result is the high percent of pregnancy in group with pelvic inflammatory diseases, because infertility is the most important complication of such kind of disease. The percent of pregnancy in group after ozone therapy is 2.5 times higher than the control group. The main result is well-being of our patients, and in my patients I have no recurrences of diseases.
Other research shows benefits with ear infections, shown here, better results with breast cancer compared to chemotherapy, and reduced nerve damage in burn victims. In this major study of 500 patients with a variety of internal disorders, ozone resulted in improvements for 90% of them. It is now even used experimentally during open-heart surgery to reduce the risks of transfusion.
Nowadays, when all the